Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another special edition of the We Don't Know Sports podcast. Don't forget to follow us on all aspects of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to find social media. We'll be there to meet you. We Don't Know Sports is bringing you all kinds of sports nonsense, memes, trivia, and special guests, just like tonight on this episode of Beat the Shift with Greg Rawlings. This episode of Beat This Shift is once again sponsored by our friends over at Dugout Mugs. So we have an exclusive deal going on for our group members, our podcast listeners, anybody that's following We Don't Know Sports. You can get a free baseball bat knob shot glass with your team's logo on it. Doesn't matter, any Major League Baseball team logo on it for absolutely free. All you got to do is just pay the shipping. That's it. That's all you got to do, except for this. You do have to go specifically to dugoutmugs.com/pastime. Again, the link is dugoutmugs.com/pastime. You can find it on our social media. We got links to it. You can go directly to the source there. But go ahead and get your free knobby baseball bat with your logo of your team on there today. All you got to do is just pay for shipping. I'm sure you can afford that to get something that you can definitely cherish, put it up on your shelf, have a glass of your favorite beverage, and you'll be good to go. But dugoutmugs.com/pastime is how you get that free deal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Beat the Shift with Greg Rawlings. And you know what? Our host, Greg, he went and found us a couple nice guests to come on. We got Denny, don't call him Danny Neagle, a former 20-game winner, one of the best starters from the 1990s. He's a two-time All-Star, and he's even got a World Series under his belt. And then we made a call to the bullpen, and we went and got our buddy Ray King, friend of the show, but most of you will know him as the guy who just owns Barry Bonds. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Beat the Shift. Here's your host, Greg Rawlings.
Hey, guys, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you. Denny, man, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Ray, it's been a while, man. Too long, actually. How you doing?
I know. It's good to be back. Talking baseball, what I love to do.
We kind of talked on a little bit off air, man, but what the hell is going on in St. Louis? Hottest team in baseball.
It's that water coming off that river there. They drinking the red, getting it hot.
My buddy, like we were saying earlier, he's a Reds fan, and my God, they were like rolling for the second wild card, and now they're just like you said. I think they packed it in after the All-Star break. So it's baseball, right?
Well, I just think with them guys, with Goldschmidt and Arenado, to where them the true guys, they slump at the beginning, but at the end of the year, they're going to be 290, 295, 30, 35 home runs, and unsung heroes Ben Wainwright. Here's a guy, pushing 40 and still doing it. So we got a veteran like that been there to where them guys can lean on and talk to the younger pitchers. And, hey, 12 wins in a row, I don't care where you're playing at. That's hard to do, even in Little League.
Absolutely. So would you say that's the team you follow the closest still post-retirement, the teams that you played for?
Yeah, I grew up a Cardinal fan, so I've been rooting for them before I got there, after there. And just a great organization, great place to play. And, fans are unbelievable.
Nice. What about you, Denny? You have a particular team you follow, or you just watch the game in general these days?
Well, I grew up a huge Orioles fan because I grew up just outside of Baltimore. But it's been tough to follow them the last 10 years or so. But my dad actually grew up a huge Washington Senators fan. So when the Nationals came there from Montreal, he jumped ship and left the Orioles and went to the Nationals. So I couldn't help but root for that team also too. So it was pretty fun to watch them win in 2019. And my dad was going nuts, man. So it's fun to be able to watch him celebrate and enjoy that success for that team.
I say bring back the Expos.
It's been crazy though this year, man. The streaks, though, too. Like you're talking about, the Cardinals winning 12 straight. Did they win their 13th straight tonight? Today
was 12. Today
was 12. Yeah, they're 12 straight. The Yankees are on that hot roll. Now the Blue Jays have been on an incredible roll. It's been the year of streaks this year.
And yeah, the Yankees were rolling when they came into Atlanta during that streak, and they both had won 10 in a row when that series started. And since then, the Yankees, they've cooled off quite a bit, and it's like they just fell off. And talked about Toronto, man. That rotation in October would scare the shit out of me, man. They look pretty nice on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Robbie Ray's got to be one of the leading. Sorry, hold on. You got me. Sorry. Yeah, Robbie Ray's got to be one of the leading contenders of the Cy Young in the AL. But you're right, the rest of that rotation too is solid, good, solid bullpen, and that lineup, man. I mean, gosh, it doesn't get much better than that good young lineup they have over there. So that's definitely going to be a team to look out for in the AL for sure. But I definitely, I'm with Ray though too, man. I have to say, just as an opposing player, I never got a chance to play for St. Louis. I would have loved to during my career because by far the best fans in baseball, man. That city is unbelievable.
Absolutely. I haven't got to go to the stadium yet. That's one place I got on my bucket list is to head out to St. Louis and watch that. It looks awesome. So we got a ton of questions from the group and a ton of fan questions. I'm just going to jump right into it. There's some that's for both of you guys and then some just specific questions for each one of you. And we're going to elaborate that on those and see where it goes. And if you want to go back and forth some on that as well, that's fine too. So this first one, we're going to start it off hot because I feel like Denny's got a hot take on this one. This one's from Robert Ewing. He said, when you were traded from the Pirates in 96, you said, make sure you ask this, by the way. Did you know in the back of your mind that there was always going to be rebuilding?
Well, because the reason why I even commented on that question on that thread on the Facebook page was because I think the way he asked the question was when Denny asked to be traded, and I was like, I want to set the record straight now. I didn't ask to be traded. What happened was Cam Bonifay was the general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates then, and I remember we were in Colorado getting ready to play the Rockies. He asked to meet me for breakfast, and he sat me down. And he just kind of laid it out for me and said, "Listen, Denny, here's the deal. Kevin McClatchy, the owner at the time, wants to re-sign you, but if we re-sign you, that's it. It's going to be like you and maybe Al Martin, one of our left fielders at the time." And, he said, but we're going to get rid of Jay Bell and the rest of the veteran guys that were still around at that time with the Pirates. So he said, so the money's going to be there to sign you if you want it, but it's going to be another 4, 5, 6 years of rebuilding again. And I was going on my 6th year, I think, at that time. So I was like, man, I'll be honest with you, Cam. I don't think I'm going to, be up for another 5 or 6 years of rebuilding. I'd like to win right now. So he's like, well, that being said, then, then I'll probably go ahead and have to trade you. I was like, well, I completely understand that, Cam, but I had the utmost respect to Cam Bonifay being completely honest with me and transparent with me with that. So, yes, to answer his question then, I did know, I had an idea, but then Cam Bonifay definitely, let it be known that was going to be the case. They were going to be rebuilding. And with all due respect, like I said, I just gone through that. So, I was ready to go win somewhere.
So the follow-up question to that, though, you go to Atlanta. Was it at the trade deadline, I'm assuming?
It was actually – that was the other crazy thing. He had said, you're probably going to get traded. July 31st comes and goes. I don't get traded. But back then, every year they do this. They put everybody through the waiver wires to see if anybody gets claimed. Nobody really thought I was going to get traded after the trading deadline came and went. So, all of a sudden, lo and behold, I get the phone call from, Cam Bonifay saying we trade you to the Braves. It was like August 26th that I got traded to them. So that was crazy. That was really weird. The craziest part too was the Braves were in town. We were playing them. I just beat Smoltz the night before, and then I get traded the next day. So when you come down the one walkway in Old Three River Stadium, you go right to the home side and left to the visiting side. That was so weird. I started heading to the right, like I always would. And I was like, oh, crap, wait a minute. Shit, I got to go left, man, to the visiting side. So that was really weird, changing locker rooms while they were there.
So what was your mindset like so you're probably the top starter in Pittsburgh, at least one of the two, and then you get traded to Atlanta, and then you're on the depth chart, you're probably number 4, obviously. So What was the mindset there? You're like, well, now I don't have to be the guy that's got to fit in and, do my thing every 5th day, I guess. Yeah,
absolutely, man. It was, the big fish in the little pond going to the somewhat bigger fish in a much bigger pond, with all those future future Hall of Famers and Cy Young winners and stuff. And a lot of people always ask me, was it tough? Did you feel like the extra pressure and everything? It must have been kind of daunting to be able to, to have to live up to those expectations with that rotation. And I said, man, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I always said I compared it to like running in like a 100-yard dash. If you run a 100-yard dash and you're running against guys that you can beat, you beat them every time, yeah, you're probably going to win the race, but you're not going to run your best times. Now, on the flip side, if you're running in a race with guys that are just as fast, if not faster than you, you might not win that individual race, but you're probably going to be posting your best times. That's how I always felt pitching that rotation. I didn't want Maddox to go out there and throw a 79-pitch complete game. Smoltz would strike out 14. Gladman would get 14 ground ball outs. So now when it was my turn, I'm like, man, I don't want to be the low man on the totem pole. So they raised my game to another level. And that's why I was able to have the success that I had in those years there.
Well, I mean, your first full year, 20-5. So I think you did your part, definitely. And it was 97. So this question is for both of you, but I'm going to start with Ray. This is from Juan Rosales. Were you apprehensive about playing for Colorado given the thin air?
Well, first I get back to Neagle, because when you get to Atlanta, he had to get his golf clubs out. If you don't play golf in Atlanta, you're an outsider. The only clubhouse with a putting green in the clubhouse.
Truth, baby.
No, I wouldn't say, Colorado was a fun city. The ballpark, it wasn't the home runs, because the home runs don't get out any ballpark. For me, the biggest thing was the outfielder is so deep. To be a sinker ball pitcher, if you got past the infielders, automatic double, got down the line was triple. So it was just me. The outfield was so big to where you even have speeders with cannons in the outfield. A single turns into doubles automatic. And that was the hardest part because, like I said, a home run's going to get out no matter where it is, stand there. All the new ballparks are short, but it's just the outfield so big to where ball got in the gap. It's almost inside the park with some of them leadoff guys.
What do you think, Denny? Did it affect you? I mean, were you apprehensive about it?
Yeah, well, sure, I was apprehensive, but to be honest with you, I knew what I was getting into. In my personal situation at the time, the reason why I chose it was because what's one major thing that had a lot to do with it was my wife at the time. Her dad was unfortunately dying from a disease called PSP, progressive supranuclear palsy. It's like ALS. Dudley Moore, the actor, had passed away from it. And so he was really struggling bad with it at the time. So she wanted to be close to home with him. So to me, it was a no-brainer at the time. I made the sacrifice so she could be close to her family and stuff, whatever. So I knew what I was up against and everything. I was more of a fly ball pitcher myself. So I knew I was going to give up even more home runs probably than I normally would in a normal season. But Ray's absolutely right, 100%. What people don't realize is that, I think if they had done it over again as a pitcher standpoint, if I had any input in how they designed that ballpark, I would have just said, just make the dimensions normal. Don't make the ballpark so big. I think they thought they were trying to do pitchers a favor and try to accommodate according to how the conditions were because of thin air. Obviously, you come hit a golf ball out here and you see how much farther you hit it. So obviously a baseball is going to go that much farther as well. But because they made the ballpark so much bigger to try to accommodate for some of those cheaper home runs that are going to go, like Ray said, those balls are going to go anyways. But now because the outfield is so big, the outfielders had to cover so much more ground. And I'll add even one more thing on that. Walt Weiss always said, and Walt Weiss was as good as they get as defensive shortstop. He said it's the fastest infield that he played on to this day. So you have the thin air, the balls don't move as much. You can't get as good of a grip. The balls are slicker. I'm sure Ray will attest to that too. So sinkers don't sink as much. Changeups don't move as much. Sliders and breaking balls don't break as much. So now your pitches don't break as much. The ballpark is huge, so the outfielders have to cover all that ground. And then on top of it, the infield's one of the fastest infields, and those cheap ones are going to go as well, too. So you're behind the eight ball right away. I mean, I was watching the game today, as a matter of fact, and you're watching a guy, Max Scherzer, who's having as dominant a season as he had for his Hall of Fame career. And, his career numbers at Coors were 0-3 with a 5.2 coming into the game, and he ended up giving up 5 runs in 5 innings. So that shows you a lot, when you get guys like that. And one last thing to add on that, Greg Maddux always touched on this also, too, and he's so right. The physical factor of it, too. Greg used to say, man, I'd come into Coors Field and pitch 7 innings, and it felt like I pitched 2 complete games sometimes to there. It would take him 2 to 3 starts to feel like he was starting, after he left Coors, after making that start, to finally feel like his body was, starting to feel normal again. So try doing that, 18 starts or like in Ray's case, 30, 40 relief appearances or whatever. It wears you down after a while, too.
Yeah, the funny was, you remember Todd Coffey?
Yeah.
The guy used to run from the bullpen. He did that in Colorado, and they had to pull him from the game. He didn't throw a pitch because he couldn't catch his breath.
Wow. I mean, there's a reason why Olympic athletes train in Colorado Springs, because if you can train at altitude, then you're going to be that much better. So it takes it out of you.
All right. The next question is for Ray. This is from Tim Griffith. He says, Ray, which team did you enjoy playing for the most and why? And before you answer, he said, I love watching you pitch in St. Louis and wish we could have had you a little longer.
Yeah, St. Louis.
Like I
said, I grew
up.
No
pressure.
Yeah, I grew up right there in Tennessee. Everybody's a Cardinal fan there, from listening to the radio to, TV, going to St. Louis Busch Stadium when I was 11, 12 years old, setting up in the Big Mac land. And then that date I got that call saying I got traded to St. Louis. was like a dream come true. Walk in the clubhouse and there's Lou Brock, Red Shaney's, Bob Gibson, Will McGee, all them guys. Where you look at the Cardinals, them guys are always around from spring training to the opening day to you may walk in the clubhouse in the middle of July and them guys are sitting there just talking baseball. And so it's been a guy coming in just that rich history. And anybody go to St. Louis, no matter visiting team, home team, if you just show the effort, they applaud you. Opposing team make a diving play and they stand up, give them a standing ovation. I remember when we got Larry Walker in that trade, his first at bat, it comes up bases loaded and he strikes out and still got a standing ovation. And then when you go to the opposing team, you come back. When I got traded to Colorado, go back in St. Louis, my first game, I get a standing ovation coming out of the bullpen. It's just that old saying, birds on the bats. Once you put the uniform on, it's like a fraternity. You're always part of it. And, like you said, you look at the fans now to where every game there's 40,000, 50,000 people that rain, sleet, or snow, and they just love their baseball. It's like that blue-collar town to where, hey, I'm a Cardinal fan. I'm going to wear my red 7 days a week. And, he hadn't been there in 10 years. I go back, and it's just like I'm going to play a game that night.
I agree with you. Like, everyone was trying to make it a big deal when Pujols went back there for the first time, and they're like, how are they going to react? I mean, I thought it was pretty clear how they're going to react after what he did for them for a whole decade. So, to me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, they did exactly what you said they was going to do. So,
like I said, just that city that it shows love. They love baseball. It's a baseball city, and you go there, it can be, on the road for 8 days, but you walk downtown, you think it's a home game because everybody got the Cardinal uniform on or jerseys on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add to it too. Ray's right. Even as an opposing player, I remember going in there as like with the Braves, and we'd be up like 2-1 in the seventh, and Andrew Jones would make a diving catch to save 2 runs, the go-ahead runs, and you'd see the fans over our dugout going, God dang it, nice catch, Jones. God dang it, whatever. They didn't want to, but they had to acknowledge it because they're just that knowledgeable, man, and they just appreciate great baseball.
So, Denny, this one's for you from Matt Claremont, I believe is how you say it, Claremont. So this is kind of an odd question, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because just the way it's worded, I guess. In May of 1996, you threw a changeup to Dave Justice, which is my favorite player growing up as a young Braves fan. He's all over the man cave in here. Apparently, he threw a changeup. He separated his shoulder, never played for the Braves again, and it altered the course of his career in the Braves. His question was, do you remember that moment, and what was going through your mind?
Oh, I vividly remember that moment. I was with the Pirates, and we were in Atlanta, and I just remember striking him out. It was a nasty changeup. I definitely remember that because Dave kind of had that swing where he helicoptered and let go of the top hand, So he would helicopter. So it wasn't unusual for him to do that. So when he swung, I saw him do the helicopter, but then I was already kind of walking. There was nobody on base, so I was kind of walking around as they were throwing the ball around. And I just remember seeing Jay Bell at shortstop kind of going like this, covering his face, like, oh, geez, because he could see what's going on. And I'm like, what? And I turn around, and I'm like, I see Justice down on the ground holding his arm, and you could tell it just came out of socket, and stuff. So, obviously you feel awful,
Right.
Obviously it's always a good feeling to throw a nasty pitch and fool somebody, but you never want that to happen, obviously. And, I didn't know David really well, but I knew him well enough just from playing against him. So I felt awful, and then sure enough, it was announced, the next day he was probably going to miss the rest of the season and stuff. So, it makes you feel even more awful, because I'm with the Pirates. I think it was like, it was around, I can't remember if you said the date, but it was like in the middle of May, but we knew that year we were pretty much already done even, by the end of May with Pittsburgh in those years. And so the Braves were always going to be in contention. So you feel bad that you took out one of their top guns and everything too. So flash forward though, and the funnier part of the whole story is when I get traded, as I mentioned earlier, now I changed locker rooms, in Pittsburgh, and every team has kangaroo court, as Ray knows. So we always find each other on funny stuff, and it could be something as simple as you missed the bunt sign the night before or the hit and run sign. But usually there's some really good funny stuff, and that gets the good finds. And we always have fun with that in kangaroo court. So when I walked in the locker room that first day, when I had to go left instead of right in Pittsburgh, Terry Pendleton was the head of kangaroo court, and he's the man there. So TP goes, oh, shit, there he is. All right, let me get my book out. Let's see. You beat Smoltz last night, 2-1, and he's going for the Cy Young. That's $100. You struck me out twice. That's $200. He goes, and then you, what was it? You struck Chipper out, and Chipper's having an MVP year. That's another two. He goes, but then most importantly, you knocked out freaking DJ by separating his shoulder on that stupid change piece. that's $1,000 right there, you know. So he's bagging me left and right, and he goes, I'm just kidding, Nags. Welcome to the team, man. You just better help us win the freaking World Series now this year. But, you know, so it stunk because I love DJ, and I would have loved to have played with him that year. But the good thing is that, you know, the part 3 of that story is in 2000, flash forward 4 more years, you know, DJ gets traded to the Yankees before me, and then I get traded to them right after that and everything. And now we're officially teammates, and I became pretty good buddies with him and everything. And so we could have a joke about it now because thank God he was able to, you know, get surgery, rehab from that, and come back and have, you know, obviously the hell of a career that he had.
That's crazy
though, man.
And this is for both of you, but I'll start with Ray. So, which AL hitter are you glad you didn't have to face on a regular basis?
That I didn't have to face?
Who were you glad you didn't have to face because they were in AL most of your career?
Probably. That's a tough one because, you know, I faced him a couple times when he came over to the National League, but Jim Thome he's a huge dude. Like, you see him, but then you see him in a box, he looked like he grew 6 more inches when he got in the box. I remember I gave up my first home run to him. I was came into Cleveland, my first pitch, I threw it, and I looked up the radar. I was like 97. I was like, damn, I feel good today. And next pitch, I tried to go back to fastball. He hit a dead center. The next day, if you know Jim Thome, he's the nicest guy besides Sean Casey in baseball. He's like, you know, Kinger, I saw you look at the radar gun. I knew you're going to come with another fastball. So from that point on, I never looked at another radar gun. But Jim Thome was just a president in a box to where just a big, strong country fit guy that, you know, he didn't miss a pitch. You hung it or you got middle, he didn't miss it.
He looks like a damn lumberjack. You know, he's in that box and he's just big, man. But I heard this story about, and Chipper Jones told the story about how they got into a benches clearing brawl in the minor leagues and they were on opposite teams. And Chipper was involved in the scuffle. And then next thing he knew, there was this big arm from behind grabbing him, not trying to fight him, just held him against the netting and says, "Easy, big fella." And he turned around, it was Jim Thome. So that's cool.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So who would you say, Denny? What's the one guy you felt like you kind of got to avoid and you're grateful for that?
Well, I'll stick in the same category as big boys, and I'll go with the big hurt, Frank Thomas. Frank and I actually squared off a bunch of times against each other in the minor leagues. We came up together at the same time, and so I faced him a ton of times when we were in the Southern League, when I was in Orlando and he was in Birmingham coming up with the White Sox. And, man, you know, talk about some tough battles, man. You know, I got him a couple times, but he got me a few times as well, too. You know, and I think those balls are still traveling today. But, you know, because the reason what's so tough about Frank is not only did he have that power, but he could hit for average. He could hit to all parts of the ballpark, you know. I mean, for as big of a guy as he was, he had such great plate discipline, too. He didn't give in. He was able to stay back on your all-speed pitches and drive those the other way. So, I mean, that guy had it all, man. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
He may be the only guy ever swing and hit a ball with both feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Man, that 10-year stretch he had in the 90s is probably right up there with Pujols. I mean, he was a stud in the 90s. And he hit, like you said, he'd probably hit like 320, 45, and 120. Like it was nothing.
Yep. The only other guy that I think even compared to his stretch as far as a right-hand hitter in the AL is Miggy.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ray, this one's for you from Daniel Harden. He says he's been a Cardinals fan since '79 when Whitey moved from the Royals to the Cardinals. You kind of touched on it earlier, but who is the favorite people you've met since you was with the Cardinals? I guess like Cardinal icons you've got to meet.
Well, of course, you know, you Lou Brock and, you know, Stan Musial, them guys. But for me was being half of that 85 Cardinal team from, you know, Tudor, Clark, Will McGee, Vince Coleman, Terry Pendleton, to them guys where, you know, you relate to because you're 19 years old sitting up in Big Mac land and just seeing these guys to where, you know, you had the free wristbands they gave you and the helmet. You feel like he's part of the team then to where go to spring training. And that's one thing about the Cardinals. Them guys come around in spring training and they don't big league anybody. They come in. If you're, you know, guy number 69 on your back and you know you only be there for 2 weeks in spring training, they treat you like you're like a big league guy. And it's just, you know, walking in, sitting there, and, you know, TP and all of them, like Denny Neagle, tell you where them guys sit around the clubhouse, they're just talking baseball. And you're that young guy coming in, and you're like a sponge, just like eating it up. And before the iPhones and all that, you had a flip phone, so you didn't have any pictures to take it. But you just wish you can be, have pictures from that time, or just be a sponge, fly on the wall, just listening to baseball talk. And I think that's what the game missed now. There's no old guys in the clubhouse doing baseball talk anymore.
I think that's huge too, bringing those guys in to be like special instructors in spring training and kind of setting the tone of how, this is how our franchise does things, and just kind of building that legacy with the up and coming players. I think that's awesome. So Denny, this one's for you from Jason Parker Hudson. He says, Denny Neagle is responsible for the best thing I've ever seen in person as a Braves fan. I was at Game 4 of the 97 NLCS when he absolutely locked down the Marlins lineup. As a Braves fan from South Florida, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed that day.
Man, I'll tell you what, that meant a lot when I saw that comment too. Those are the kind of things that really hit home to you and stuff, because it's easy to forget sometimes what it means to other people watching their favorite team and stuff too. And, as a fan myself, even too, I can relate because Ray will tell you the same thing. We're sports fans. So when I watch I can't even say Washington football team. I'll still call them the Washington Redskins, but I grew up a diehard Redskins fan. So even to this day, man, I live and die with them, man. So, watching the game last night, I was back home with my dad and got to watch the big Thursday night win against the Giants. And my dad and I are jumping up and down celebrating that win. So when I hear a comment like that, it means a lot to me, man. And that's definitely one of the highlights of my career for sure. If it's not the number one game, it's definitely the top 2 or 3 all time. But it's hard not to say that's the number one game because we were down 2-1, in Miami. And I remember I always gave Harold Reynolds crap about that because the night before, after Game 3, they were talking about Game 3 and then talking about Game 4 in preparation for it. And here I am coming off 20 wins, my best season in baseball so far up to that point. And Al Leiter had a good year, but Al Leiter was like 16-11 with like a 4 ERA that year. But he goes, I give the nod to Al Leiter. I think the Marlins are going to win that game tomorrow. So I remember after the game, I went right to Harold. I said, I owe this up to you, buddy. You were the one that gave me the extra motivation. He's like, what did I do? I was just messing with him, But anytime you get, you can use anything like that, it's always good. But, man, most importantly, it was like I said, we were down 2-1. And all my family was there, man, and stuff. They were so pumped for it afterwards. And we definitely did some good celebration in South Florida after that game.
Absolutely. So this one's for both of you guys from Daniel Lawrence. Ray, you can go first. Just real quick. Favorite part about playing in the majors?
Well, favorite part of playing in the majors, you get that, you're in AAA, you get that phone call saying you're going to the majors. I remember I was in AAA and down Oklahoma City, and I get the phone call and saying I'm going to Atlanta, with the Cubs and, going to face the Braves. And I remember flying in, landing about 5 o'clock, and Atlanta traffic is horrendous, and I get to the ballpark about 7:15 for a 7:40 start, and I'm nervous. I'm sitting there just don't know what to say. Scared because you knew the guys from spring training, but you still that guy first time up. You don't know what to do, when to go, where to go. And I get to the bullpen in the 6th inning, phone ring is like get King up. I get up, start warming up, and next thing you know, here come the manager with the left arm up, and I walk in and warming up, and there's Benito Santiago, my catcher, Mark Grace is my first base, Gary Gaddy, Blauser, and Benito said, "Hey kid, just throw the ball, I catch it." I'm like, "Well, one's fast, 2 crazy, like just throw it, I catch it." So I'm like, I get on the mound, and it was run on first, and it was like now batting number 10, Chipper Jones, in the stadium. The tomahawk chop is going, and my heart is just beating. I look over at Gracie, I step off and get on, and Grace is like, "Slider." And, all of a sudden now I throw that pitch, ground ball, double play, and I get out of it. And it seemed like it took me 12 months to walk from the mound to the dugout because what just happened, because everything is slow motion. And I leave there, and all my friends are calling, and I just meant it like, okay, all the hard work from Little League field, college, through the minor leagues to where you finally see you put on a big league uniform. And, 10 years later, felt like I had a good career, but that first day is the day you never forget because you can say you're a big leaguer, and a lot of guys get drafted, but a lot of guys don't make it to where even that first game is like you got a uniform on to where, hey, I made it to the big leagues and I fulfilled a dream come true.
What about you, Denny?
I would say, probably just the baseball is such a fraternity, and that we always talk about that. So I think the one thing that you'll hear almost every player to a T say, the one big thing that they miss about the game the most is that camaraderie, man, and those relationships that you develop with all your teammates, but also too, I'll take it a step farther too. You meet some just incredible people in this game, not only the players you play with, but the players you play against, equipment managers, the trainers, even some umpires, but all those relationships, man, and just those times of playing cards and mixing it up and messing with each other, pulling pranks on each other. I was a goofy guy that used to, have some fun with my teammates, do impressions, tell jokes, pull some pranks here and there and stuff like that. So it's those kind of things that you miss, and those are the times that you relish the most when you played.
Absolutely. So we're running close on time. I got one more for Ray here, and I think it's a little bit of a dig at you, but we're going to ask it anyway. Well, this is from Jason Eon. What was your reaction to being involved in a blockbuster trade that's still paying dividends for the Cardinals today? I'm assuming you was in a Wainwright deal. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah, it was me, Jason Marquis, and Wainwright coming from Atlanta over to St. Louis for JD Drew and Eli Marrero. It was so funny. We just went back for the reunion from the 2004 World Series team, and I saw Walt, and I'm like, see, Wainwright was just a throw-in. I was the main part of that trade because, you threw me 86 to 90 games every year. Wainwright was just, wet behind the ears, and I was like, I'm not going unless Wainwright comes. And so the deal wasn't done unless Wainwright was in it. But, it just goes to show to where – Wainwright was a kid that was, the Braves were high on him, but going that trade and just to see what he's doing, 17, 18, 19 years later just speaks volume to where, even today, he didn't have his best stuff, but got his 2,000th strikeout today. And, out his whole career, he's had a great career, but you always going to remember that one curveball that he threw to Beltran in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That Uncle Charlie was really Uncle Charlie to where, here's a hitter that's been on fire. And the guy just bulked him. He goes from the bullpen back into the rotation and just been a staple in that Cardinal, team to where he's a guy all them guys look up to. And that's one trait that they go down to where they got the better end of the deal. And, like I said, 2 years with me and Marquis had a good, couple good years. And my 2 years there, I threw, I think, 80-something games each year and went to World Series and went to the playoffs. But Wainwright was a key part of that, and it's showing today.
I remember watching JD when he just got traded to the Braves. It was in Philly. Citizens Bank Park was just opening that year, but he had a few good years for the Braves. But I felt like they thought they were going to re-sign him long term, and it didn't work out. So then you lost Wainwright, and then the rest is history, man. Him and Yachty, one of the best combos in the history of the game together.
Yeah,
it's by far. Like I said, my years over in Atlanta with Maddox and Smoltz and all them guys, just competitive. And I think even Wainwright, the 1 or 2 years. Because when you go over to Atlanta, they go tell you, I remember going in that clubhouse my first year in 2003, and when Bobby Cox walked in, spikes on, Leo's like, all right, boys, let's get ready for October. Don't get hurt down here. I'm coming from Milwaukee where we lost 105 games to where there's times where Maddox and Smoke's like, oh, God, I got tea time at 8:45. We're at the clubhouse and off the field. I got to wait to call home to talk to my kids because they're still in bed and my day is done in spring training. So it was always competitive edge where Smolt's been an outfield and the, like the splits between the fences, the padding, he'd be like, all right, $100 who can stick the most balls in the crack, or we go play more basketball to where I think Wainwright picked that up to where it's always a competitive edge to where even playing catch is competitive. And that rubs off. Denny will tell you, going to Atlanta from other teams, it was more of we expect to win, but we're going to have fun doing it. And I think that's what Wainwright took over to St. Louis, and it's still showing today.
100%.
Denny, this last one's for you, and I'm kind of embarrassed because I don't know what it's about, but 2 people requested it nonetheless.
Here it is. I know what it's about.
Doug Laughlin and Riss Valdez. Do the train whistle.
You froze.
Yeah, one more time.
You froze.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
That's a lot of free time on your days off when you only pitch once every 5 days.
Yeah, exactly. That work on my chip and putting.
Oh, wow. Hey, guys, it's been great. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys coming on. We're going to wrap it up. We got to do our next show and do all of our picks against the spread and watch us amazing Thursday night game we got lined up here with the Panthers and who's playing quarterback for the Texans? I don't know. Probably Uncle Rico.
Mills or somebody like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But guys, I appreciate it.
I'm gonna go against you.
Yeah, I'll send them to you here shortly.
Oh,
I was 10-6 last week. Maybe you can go 6-10. I don't know. But I appreciate it, guys. I'd love to have you back either down the stretch or spring training time, and we'll do it again. Sound good?
That sounds
Anytime,
awesome, man.
Good seeing you,
Thanks,
Danny.
guys.
All right,
Have a
you
good
too,
one.
man.